Hello and welcome to another episode of ResourceFULL. It's number 20. Brilliant. It's been so great to meet so many people who, as it says on the screen now, who freely share their resources online. And this series, in fact, today's website, it's the reason I set up this kind of interview series, because it's a great example of someone who just enjoys their job, enjoys creating activities, and just shares them for free so other people can use them, talk about them, and we can all improve our pedagogy. And it's great that this number of websites exists. And I've certainly noticed in the last few months, especially some of the resources that today's guest has been sharing and invited them on. I'm really, really chuffed that Helen can join me. So the website we're looking at is Maths HKO. Why HKO? Well, I'm going to guess it's something to do with school initials, but I'll ask her in that in just a moment. Helen has been willing to join me now. And Helen, come on down. Thank you for joining me, Helen.
No problem.
Now, yeah, Helen, HKO, is it school initials by any chance?
Yeah, we're known of 3 letters, HKO. So Helen Constantine.
Every single one of my 5 different schools, I've always been given different variations of it. Absolutely every single one. So I just thought, wonder where HK come from. Although I see Helen P on your Zoom screen now, so I'm assuming maybe a married name.
No, it's complicated.
Should I not say that? Should we move on?
Yeah, well, Constantine's actually not my legal name, so it's my dad's first name.
Okay, lovely.
But I'm taking it because I don't want to be known as my real name, which is 15 letters long. So that's why I go as HK.
Intriguing. I should have kind of warned you not to go down that route, but let's ignore it now. Let's move on. Helen, thank you for doing this, and I'm sure I'll say it later on as well. Thank you for sharing the number of resources you do. There's so many good mathematical thinkers in there, and we'll talk through your website with you in a few moments. But tell us about you and your teaching background to start.
So I've been teaching about 15 years. I don't have a romantic story about why I went into teaching. It was just the case of I finished my degree and I thought, I don't really want to go into finance. I found it very dull. One of the modules I did at uni. So my parents were teachers. So I thought, I don't really know any other jobs. I always say to my tier 12s as well that, there are more jobs out there than the ones you actually know about, that you see, day in, day out, or your parents do. Not me. My parents were teachers. I thought, yeah, I'll be all right at it. So I signed up for a PGCE IOE. I hated it. I hated my PGCE year. I hated my NQT year. I spent the whole year telling everyone at my school, I still get a few people remembering it and making fun of me for it, saying I'm going to quit at the end of this year. Teaching is not for me. So I tell the PGCE students all the time that just sometimes the first couple of years are really difficult. And then I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was just the second year I was a bit more relaxed. The students sort of knew me as someone who was a bit more experienced. I didn't feel like a newbie. And I loved my second year. And then from there, I just got better each year. So yeah, it wasn't something I was going to stick at. It was a 1 year, get my NQT year, and I was out of there.
I mean, so many people leave the profession within 5 years. That's a really interesting story to hear, though. So what was it that you don't think you necessarily enjoyed? Was it the fact that you were having to create stuff for the first time in your head? Was it, have you been able to pinpoint anything about what you really didn't enjoy about those first 2 years? That's really intriguing to me as a PGCE tutor.
No, actually, that's the side of it I really liked. I liked creating stuff. I'm a very creative person, so I was quite happy to sit at home creating things. It was, I don't know, it was you could plan and plan and plan, which I did. I think I overplanned, and I wasn't comfortable in the classroom at that point. So I knew the teaching side. I was okay at that part. It was the unknown of what a student might turn around and ask a question and throw me off, or I kind of had a plan and I needed to stick to it. And I think that was the problem. I was too rigid, and then with I need to get through this, and I was worried about the behaviour as well, which is always a concern for PGC and NQT, I think. And I was kind of a bit panicked a lot of the time. I wasn't relaxed. And then by the second year, I had some of my groups again for the second year. I was much more relaxed. And as soon as I relaxed, I don't know, I think the students sensed I was more relaxed. Their behaviour improved, and I didn't have as many issues to deal with. It was kind of a balance of two things.
That's really interesting, and you're right that we are the I can't think of the name of the person, the quote I've seen it, but we are the temperature of the room as the teacher. We're the ones that, if we're tense, our kids become tense. If we're relaxed, they tend to relax. There's it's a lovely quote, I really can't remember who said, but yeah, we are the weather that makes the room the kind of the atmosphere, which is Completely true. I don't know what you said about making resources is clearly true, because 15 years on, you've got this website now, and I mean, the design of some of your tasks as well. I mean, I use most rubbish PowerPoint things and you know, the world's most basic fonts. You create these not only great mathematical thinking tasks, but they actually look really attractive as well. How did the website come about?
Again, I suppose it should be like a nice romantic story. Again, it's not. I can't remember. That's the truthful. I was, well, there was a period in my time of teaching about, say, 5, 6 years ago, when a couple of things happened that kind of changed the course of my teaching. So I was just plodding along, more years under the belt, and then the borough advisor, Matt Lewis, he's a great guy, came in, and we talked about angle reasoning, and through our discussions talking about looking at angles in a triangle, it kind of really hit me that I had been teaching it as basically the students add up two numbers and subtract them from 180, or add up the angles you've got, or the angle you've got. If it's isosceles, you've got two of those, and then take it away from 180. And I was like, this isn't about angle reasoning. This is about subtraction from 180. And through this kind of discussion, we spent a bit of time on that. I was reasoning that I realized that the whole way I was looking at certain topics was just wrong. I wasn't really teaching them for understanding. I was teaching them how to do some procedures. And then not long after that, Matt Lewis got me in contact with, he knows his tutor from uni was Jeremy Hodgson.
Okay,
So I got involved with some of the ICAMS stuff. They were trialing out, they wanted someone to go into the lessons and trial out some of these lessons, and they came in and watched me teach them, and we discussed them, and then I got to be part of some of the interviews they had with some of the students, and this was fascinating, and the lessons are fantastic. And from there, I just started rethinking how I taught things, thinking about the questions, and I realized that tasks, good tasks, can really assist, really help you in the lesson. That just having a series of questions that go from, okay, here's some nice simple ones, just practicing that procedure you've just taught, and then here's some ones maybe with some algebra, or here's some worded ones. I felt that that wasn't what the lesson should have been about. So I was on Twitter before my website, and I put some tasks out there, and then I thought, the way I organize my lessons, they're on like a OneDrive, and it goes year by year. And then in each year, it has each class I've got. And it's just impossible to find anything. And also some of the stuff from my early years in teaching are absolutely horrendous when I look back on them. So I wanted a place to put them where I could just go to them, and then I could just drag the image and put it into a new PowerPoint if I was creating something. And obviously you get some things where you go and find the PowerPoint, you search in OneDrive, you look for it and you go, oh, this is on fractions, but what you're actually looking for, you can't find it. And you realize it's because you used it at the beginning of a different lesson, because it worked quite well with that lesson. So I started dropping them into this website because I thought it was an easy way to find them. Then I shared them, and then people were commenting, and I was finding actually by sharing them, I was getting feedback, constructive feedback. It was really useful because people were pointing me in direction of other resources that I could use within that topic, or they might say, look, you made a mistake here, or have you thought about doing it this way? So I felt that actually that helped me as well improve as a teacher.
Do you know what, you pointed out so many lovely things that I always encourage the staff, and it's nice that you've gone through that journey, that the discussion with other people improved your own practice and helped you consider it more, and being willing to be open with it, because it's quite it's a tense profession that we undertake, but we've got to be open to discussion and open for ideas coming back that say, have you thought about this to improve, and be willing to be open with that. Because I think when I started, whilst observations, I think part and parcel of what we do in the conversations of what we do. But some people are very nervous. Like, oh no, I don't want to hear from this. No, I don't want you to watch me, and I don't want to discuss it. And that's a real shame, because your journey there, 15 years, it sounds like you've had your peaks and troughs, and the peaks have come from when you've worked with other people, and you think, oh, that's really inspired me, and you work with the ICAMs, and that's honestly, it's a great journey, and it tells a lot as to the importance of collaboration. So again, thank you for sharing what you share. Can you share now? Let's go onto your website. Let's start having a look around and talk people through it, because as I said, the way you design some of the tasks makes mine look like absolute pish. At least you had colourful, different, the mathematical thinking elements as well, as I was saying before. But I certainly want to introduce your website with you, and then let's see if there's any particular ones that the things that you point out that you think are either the most effective or maybe being the most enjoyable?
Okay, so I'll somehow I managed to just close the window, so I'll I'll
Ah,
start.
that's fine. That's fine. There's certainly certain brands on your website like Slice of Pie and Lock the Box. And Lock the Box looked interesting as well. So I'm looking forward to hearing about a bit of those. But here we go. Maths HKO. Talk us through.
Okay, so yes, I've not spent too long on the actual design. It was just I thought up here I just wanted to have some of the kind of categories I thought might be useful. I've added to them obviously over time. This image was from my year 10 lesson, and then yeah, I've got, so I started just putting whatever topic is. I didn't even have them in order, alphabetical order or anything. I just threw them on, and then I thought, well, there's not that many on them. It won't take long to find them. And then sort of the numbers got quite a long list now. So then I thought maybe I should branch it off into a few more categories just to help me really find things. So data, yeah, there's not a very long list for data. So I haven't really done much with that in terms of categories. I've just left it as it is. Then we've got I used to have a newsletter. So before my website, actually, another reason why I've put my website together was because I had a newsletter I put out weekly for about a year. And I put things I'd seen around, some things of my own, but some things I'd seen around, and I gave that to my department every week. And I think people were finding it was a bit much each week.
Mhm.
So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll put it on a website and then I can share the link to that instead. So that's what those newsletters are about.
Let's just go past them. The effort you've obviously put into those. Let's at least look at one in a bit more detail, because I can see you obviously got some tasks in there as well. And I think what you're doing is sharing things not only that you've made, but from elsewhere as well.
Yeah, so there was this one here. Don't think I can zoom in a little bit. I made these boxes. They are deal or no deal.
Oh, great fun.
So year 7 class, I can't remember, we must have been, I think we're looking at data handling at the time. I've used it for some other things afterwards. And I said to them, we're looking at a problem that had that I found to do with deal or no deal. And I said, oh, it'd be cool to make the boxes. And then the class said, can we do that? So I said, oh, at the end of the term, at the end of the half term, we'll do that. And then I tried to find a task, or I tried to keep it simple. Actually, the head of department at the time, his staff meetings, they were great. He would just bring in a task he'd found, put them down on the table, and he'd say, okay, have a look at these. And then you just look around and then the whole department are just sitting there scribbling away, working on these questions. And they were my favorite department meetings, where we just sit around doing some maths.
Again, your journey shares such important lessons, not only for teachers, but for departments as well. When we talk maths and we do maths together as teachers, you then start exploring, well, not only experiencing what the pupils do, but you then reflect on it. So, well, why did I think about it that way? And you said earlier on about your NQ10 year that you didn't know what responses the kids were going to come back to you with, and you kind of had to think on your feet. And it's those kinds of activities when you work on things together collaboratively that someone says, oh yeah, the pupils will say this, and you start learning the misconceptions, which again would make you feel less nervous, but also really useful. That's really nice, and again, it shows what great passion you've got. Keep going. This is great.
Well, this sharing methods, actually, this was on here because all these questions, the Key Stage 4, our school, she's very keen. We had this huge board in our maths office, and she'd put up a question, and then people would put their method of solving it. And so I started sharing some of those because I thought they were really nice. So here's some of the solutions they were putting on for each question. So that's what we haven't had any of those for a little while, but that's why there's sharing methods on there. So that was from our department.
What a nice idea.
And then what's this one? You mentioned, what one did you mention?
Unlock the Box, I think I saw, which I think is for every school in September. Let's pretend that COVID isn't existing. Is always rushing around. What do we do for open evening? And I saw your Unlock the Box thing. I thought, well, you clearly got something that's worked really nicely for you. And some schools are always trying to find something new. So is that? Should we have a look at that?
Yeah, I can't remember what which one it's under.
It's to the right. I'm guessing our faces are in the way. So to
Oh,
the right of
that's what
start.
it's you're hiding it. Unlock the box. There it is. This is I like to go and meet up with our feeder primary schools, and they go in. They've come in and to watch some of the maths teaching, and I've gone in and watched some of their maths lessons. So we've got an idea of what they've been doing at primary key stage 2. It's interesting, and we had the discussions. We share some resources with one another, and I really enjoy it. Normally in the summer term when our timetables are a little bit lighter with year 11 and year 13 out. So I for a few years, obviously we've not been able to do it recently, we've invited in groups, and we'd normally, like the last time we did it, I think it was 2 years ago, we had every Monday afternoon, because I had year 11 at that point and I didn't have to teach them. We used to invite groups of year 6 in, and then we had groups of year 7, and they would sit down together and they'd have to try and solve some puzzles together. So year 6 and 7 in little groups. And I made these boxes. So I worked through some puzzles. They're normally to do with primes and factors. I love anything to do with that. And they had to work out the 3-digit code, and then they got to unlock. So like the questions on the orange card, open the orange padlock, the green, and so on. And then when they unlocked them, there was something inside.
Awesome. You're really creative, clearly. I love it. You just got these ideas, and you clearly stick with them as well. As you shared at the top of that screen, if they cost a few pounds, and hopefully the school will always give you that back, but you get a chance just to go and buy these small things from the works and go and have fun with it. It's inspiring. It's really nice to see.
Yeah, hopefully I get to do it again soon, because it's obviously not been able to. I haven't been able to do it for a little while.
That is sad, isn't it? But you're absolutely right. I think, well, I actually always really like open evenings, and you get those keen year 6s who are trying to impress you, and certainly those who really already love maths. And if they don't, it's our job to make it that night as well. But they just want solving puzzles and anything like that. It just shows the buzz, and it gives them opportunity to think, oh wow, secondary schools can be just like this, because all our lessons are just like that, of course. Keep going. So I mean, problem solving book, multiple choice. Tell us what you've enjoyed making and sharing here.
So puzzles is another one that every now and I have always loved solving puzzles. I think a lot of us as maths teachers, we like puzzles, and actually it wasn't particularly my maths lessons at school that really got me interested in maths. It was my dad was a maths teacher, and it wasn't him either. It was my mum, who was a primary school teacher, who used to bring home puzzles for me to do, and I love solving them. So Happy Cubes, they still sell them, the Happy Puzzle Company, but Happy Cubes were, I just remember I was about 10 or 11, and she brought them home, and I remember spending weeks I could build them all separately, but I was trying to build the giant one. And I didn't really think that there was any link to maths at the time. But my kind of love of puzzles and solving things come from these little puzzles that she used to bring me home.
Are there any of these in particular you want to show us? One that you like, always think, oh, this is one I'd love to go and do?
So I do like these ones here. So this one's actually from the term just gone. So I think it was September, October time. I've got 2 once a week year 8, so two key stage 3 groups that I only see once a week on a Monday. And I love Countdown, another puzzle I like to work through. And it was frustrating for me. They're a mixed attainment group, and I would put up the countdown, and I don't know if other teachers see the same issues. They'd look and go, well, there's 100 there, and there's an 8, and I'm trying to get 700 and something. So I'll just times those together, and then I'll subtract all the other numbers, and I'll hopefully get as close as I can. And then they'd say, yeah, I've got 50 away, or I've got 40 away. And I said, okay, can you refine that? Well, not really. I've done those 2 times together, and I subtracted them all. And then I'd say, well, I found it. And I felt like I was saying, I'll show you my method. I took that number away from 100, then I multiplied by that number. And they kind of looked part in awe, part in confusion. And they couldn't understand how I managed to get that. And then I'd throw another one up there. And then it struck me on the drive home one day that what I'm doing is I'm showing them like almost like algebraic fractions, and then saying, well, you've only got to the point where you can solve simple equations, but look, I can solve this, this algebra equation, but I'm not giving them the tools and how they can make that kind of step to get there. So I went home and thought about it. I thought, well, I want them to be able to kind of view these subtractions there before they multiply, because then they'll be able to see that they actually could get a little bit closer to the number. So I thought, well, there's too many numbers. That's the issue. There's too many steps for them to work through. So I thought, maybe if I took away some of the numbers and we just deal with 3 numbers, maybe they'll be more inclined to try subtracting before they multiply, thinking about distributive law. So initially I just had those 3 numbers, and I had find as many possible ways as you can. So I went into class with that, and the students were coming up with 25 out of 4 out of 3, 25 times 4 times 3, and they still weren't trying kind of subtracting the 4 before multiplying by 3 and things like that. So I thought, I need to give them some of the answers and say, can you make these? So I went home again and I started playing around with, okay, which numbers can I make? And then I realized there's actually quite a lot. I don't know why I was surprised by that. But I was thinking I know there are not normally any negatives in Countdown, but I was surprised with how many solutions or how many different variations you can have with the numbers and what answers you can actually get. So then I went back with this, and this was more successful because the students, I gave them a bit of time to try and find as many as they could. Then I asked them who's managed to get 5. Okay, who's managed to get 10? And someone shared which ones they got. I said, did anyone get any that weren't on the list? People had their hand up. Oh, miss, I figured out how to get 88. Oh miss, I figured out how to get this. So we were slowly ticking them off. And it did go on for a lot longer than I expected. But we did have a lot of discussion about use of brackets and the order of operations. And I think it was a worthwhile activity. And it was they enjoyed it. I enjoyed creating it, and they enjoyed using it.
What you've modeled there again is the clear reflective practitioner that you are, to go back and say, well, I've got a task, I'll use it. Hold on, I know I can make this better. And then you made it better, and the feedback you got from the pupils. And also you've linked something that, I just played Countdown, but what I've done Countdown in lessons, but you just made something really clear to me, which I haven't thought of before, the importance of the order of operations. Well, as you say, when I learned that trick about, you gave the example 100 times 8, if you take away the 7, that's 7 lots of 8 you can subtract. And when I learned that, I was like, this is it blew my mind. But as you say, it links order operation to distributive law and all sorts of things that we can actually then make those links and make those connections. So, and that's what maths is supposed to be all about, after all. So that was really, I loved hearing about that. Thank you. At the top of your screen, I saw the word connected questions. Now, that's passed me by in the past, and I'm intrigued by that because maths is all about making connections. So I'm intrigued as to what you've created here.
Yeah, I've heard, I think it was actually Joe Morgan, someone I was listening to not so long ago, said about something that when she was in school, a lot of what she learned in school, she was good at maths, but she didn't really understand it. I'm pretty sure it was her, but I might be misquoting. And I was sat there thinking, that's me. Like, a lot of stuff I learned in school, I could do it, but I didn't really understand it, and I didn't really understand how it connected to other things as well. And a lot of things came when I was teaching. I sit there thinking, oh yeah, I've just realized something about this. And a lot of things as well I noticed when we were looking at some of the ICAM's work, things would dawn on me. I'd never thought of that. So I started trying to show the students, through questions. I like questions where, especially in things like ratio and proportion, where you can use the same numbers. If you've got 3% of a number is 8, what's 6%? And then you could say, if it takes I could travel 3 kilometers in 8 minutes, 6 kilometers will take me how long? And you keep using the same numbers and show them that actually how you can work those out is, use a similar method. You can use a ratio table. And so I wanted them to see the connections between particular topics, especially as the topics they're usually when you teach them. So in this unit here, we teach vectors in the same unit as Pythagoras. They're all together at the same half term. So Pythagoras, vectors, looking at sequences, they're all around the same time. And I wanted them to say, look, these aren't disjointed, that there is a connection flowing through them. And it will reinforce your understanding and maybe enlighten as well, because you think, oh, I never viewed it that way. And actually that's helped me understand it a little bit more.
So how do you present that? I mean, you've got one collection of 8 questions at the top of the screen there. Do you ask them to solve these and then try and see which questions connected to which as a separate task, or how do you present this to the pupils?
I do like questions where they kind of work through. There might be some that they've struggled at, some that they share their thinking, and then some of them sometimes I think they've taught my maybe a little while, they notice, oh, I've seen something. What's that? Well, all the answers are similar or whatever. There's usually something they can spot that connects them together. It might be that I need to prompt them a bit more, and then we start making that connection. Hold on, there's some very similar numbers here. We've got this 2x plus 3, but over here we've got 3 plus 2n, and then discuss, well, why are they giving us a similar answer, or what's the connection? Why does this n equals 6 when you substitute in here give me the same answer as in the table when I substitute 6 into y equals 2x plus 3? Why are they the same answer? And when I draw this pattern, why for the 6 pattern, why does it give me this same number again? So you start having the discussions, and then they hopefully, most groups, they come up with, well 2 times n means 2n, and you can write it as 2n. They start having those discussions, which is quite nice.
It's again, my first school went to my head of department said to me straight away, one of the first things, try to make the connection between topics as often as possible, because it always gives them a little comfort blanket in lessons as well. Oh, as you say, oh, I've seen that before. And it makes the connection we know more with the science of the brain now, that making connections works. But maths is that, and I think Mark McCourt's got that diagram, hasn't he? Somewhere on his website, the vast universe of mathematics, how it's all connected, not these just completely separate blocks of work, which, as you said, you didn't really enjoy maths at school. If you have those connections, you then think, oh yeah, and those moments for the pupils, which are really nice to see. That's a lovely idea, and it's as opposed to just telling them, have you noticed what's connected here? It becomes through the conversation, clearly.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Really enjoy that. Tell us more. Honestly, I'm really enjoying this, Helen. Thank you. Is there anything else from the top, from the menu, that you feel that these are things you really want to share?
Obviously, I like, so recently, probably you may have seen, there was a post I put on where I was doing a puzzle, and it was on prime factors. I think I need to put some better labels on, actually, because sometimes I struggle to find things after. And I kind of have a strange way of working, and sometimes I struggle with where to put things because it does link with lots of different topics. I'm thinking, well, now where do I put it? Do I paste it in a few places? So
can I share screen, because I've got a feeling I know which one you mean. I'm going to steal and say, is it this one?
Oh no, well, that's another a product of prime factors one, and then that's popped up a few times recently because other people were talking about simplifying fractions using that. And it's just really nice. You go on and Twitter, I'm talking about Twitter, sorry. You go on and then someone's mentioned it, and then they're talking about how they're working through the questions, and then they come up with something really nice. You think, oh, I like that. I can use that after, well, it works quite nicely with this task. And the one I was talking about was one I shared a couple of days ago, and it was a puzzle to do with prime numbers.
That one?
That's the one.
Also,
I liked the fact that this was one of those things that so one of the things that obviously at the moment I can't do this, but when I'm in school and the students are sharing an idea or having a difficulty, some things pop into my head and I think, oh, I think they might need a bit of help with this. And then I start thinking about something and I'll go and scribble it on a bit of scrap of paper. And on the drive home is where I have my best thinking time. I think about, okay, what would work quite well to help them with this obstacle they're having? And I kind of have a bit of reflection on the drive home. I've always done that. It's a little bit more challenging at the moment, but I'm finding that I go to sleep, or so I'm trying to go to sleep, and suddenly things pop in my head. So this was one of those. I've drifting off and I thought, I've just thought of a really nice puzzle, and I started scribbling down on a scrap of paper, and then kind of sketch it out a little bit, and then I could fall asleep, and then hope in the morning that it makes sense. And then I put this together. But what was really nice was then Johnny Hall went and put something together on his site, so it was a little bit of a collaboration, which obviously wouldn't have come about if I wasn't sharing it on Twitter. And yeah, he's now got something on his site that uses this. So
that's nice. Can you tell me how you'd introduce this then? Let's go into the classroom. You wouldn't just give here kids, there you go. What's the scaffold that supports them or gets them started? Because some kids, let's be honest, we know when they're given a puzzle, and it's clear that puzzles are a huge part of your pedagogy, which is fab. But when they get given a puzzle, it's not very clear how do you start. So therefore, they put the pen down and go, don't know what to do. So how do you introduce these, and how do you support the kids to get them going in something like this?
I'd say you definitely need to have an environment where you want them to discuss with one another, because I'd argue that most classes you'll get a few, you will get a few like that don't want to sort of engage as such, but you obviously want to try and work on that environment. Just have a go. Maybe you want to give them whiteboards if you feel that will encourage them to make mistakes and have a little play around with it. If they're getting the chance to discuss with somebody as well, I know it's not ideal right now, but maybe at home they can be scribbling on a piece of paper. And then I'm hoping, if it's something you're going to start with, if it's something that, depending on what year group you use it for, if it's something you're going to start with, and you can say, okay, have a look at this, and then you might get discussions like, oh, okay, if it's a cube number, it needs to be the same number I use in each of that top row, those yellow boxes. I want to hear, it'd be nice, even if they don't get the actual numbers yet, that those discussions are happening. Oh, okay, it's even. So, well, it's got, one of those has got to be 2 then, because that's the only way we're going to make that an even number at the end. And even if they're not saying that, thinking of the right questions and the prompts to get them to thinking about, okay, would I be able to use, say, 3, 5, and 7? They're prime numbers. I do find most students can list the first, say, 10 prime numbers quite comfortably from year 7 all the way through. So they might start thinking of some prime numbers there. Okay, if I did just throw some prime numbers in there, say 3, 5, and 7, would that give me an even number? So then you've got discussions about which types of numbers, when you multiply together, would produce an even number. So I think it doesn't matter so much for me if everything is always solved. It's nice when we have the discussions about how we're going to solve it. And I think that kind of conversation happening with the students and you is really important. Someone once told me that students need to know how you're solving things as well. They need to hear, what would you do? So not necessarily giving them the answers, but say, see, I'm looking at that even one. I'm trying to figure out what numbers I could put in there that would produce an even number. Let them play around with it. Well, I'm going to try these numbers. No, that doesn't work. And maybe they'll come up with that too. And if they don't, and say, okay, what sort of numbers would I need to have to produce a cube? How do we get a cube number? So kind of giving those prompts or starting points for them to work on them.
That's really interesting that you it's an example again of when you do the task yourself before you give it to the kids, because you then create those scaffold sentences. I mean, that even one, as you said, it really is just 3 numbers multiplied together. Well, what are the features of that number to create an even number? 1 must be even, or must all be even? Is that right? Yeah, well, no, how many evens does there have to be in there? Of course, with prime, but the conversation, of course, would be that 2 is the only even prime number, and that's really useful in itself as well. How many do you have to be? Can it be odd times even? Yeah, even times odd. Would that do it? I'm tired. I've been up since early this morning.
It's interesting because we're comfortable with what an even number is. But I was thinking about this the other night. I was thinking, hold on, how many do I need to have? I thought the same thoughts, and I was thinking, hold on a minute, I'm being stupid here. If it's got a factor that's 2, it's got a factor of 2. Of course, it's going to be even.
And do you know how that's something that occurred to me? Again, I've been up since 5 this morning. Very, very needy children this morning. So we'll always have our moments. Do you know how I suddenly realised it though? I thought of a number block of 2, and it doesn't matter how many number blocks you've got of 2. So you've got 7 lots of 2, 8 lots of 2. It's always going to have that flat. And that's how I suddenly just realised in my head, you know what? Of course, it doesn't matter. As you say, if there's a 2 in there, it doesn't matter how many there are. It's going to be flat. Opposed to having that odd one on top. I love number blocks. Anyway, that's the joy of having children. To watch number blocks.
Sorry.
But watching number blocks, I'm enjoying getting my son into it, because I then get the enjoyment of watching that program myself. I've taken the screen, and you mentioned that a couple of tasks you shared on Twitter recently, and so I've taken some of the latest ones. If I scroll back to the first couple I noticed, there's you being introduced again. I saw this. What do you notice about the volumes and lengths of each of the triangular prisms? And I saw that sentence again on the next another one I found. What do you notice? That clearly is an indication again to me that you encourage a lot of discussion in your classrooms.
Yeah, it's kind of two parts to this really. It's the discussion, which is nice. I like kind of neat things that they see, you know, that they've worked out and go, oh, I like that.
Mm.
And also, and I had a PGCE student a couple of years ago. I won't obviously name names, but he brought this task to a year 8 top set it was. And the task was just to find missing angles in quadrilaterals. And I said, okay, I said, do you want to see if we can try and amend this slightly? I don't normally, I let him normally just do what he wants to do, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. But I felt that this task, I thought he could improve it. And I said, it's just, you've given some questions and you'll get some will do 1 or 2. And I said, they've got there's no kind of incentive to actually work through this task. I said it'd be quite nice if they could have something that they could look at afterwards, and not push them to try and work out all 4, but then see if they can actually see a connection or a pattern. So we amended it slightly, and I just feel that sometimes you've got a string of numbers up there and you've got to work them out. You know, it's got the first one. What's the incentive to carry on? And something Chris McGrain actually said, and well, it's in his book, but he mentioned it in a maths conf not so long ago. I can't remember it was, who had this factors task, and they instead of just getting them to list factors of numbers, they had to group them. And they said that they're taking away kind of they're getting the practice of finding factors, but that isn't the kind of sole purpose of the task. And I like that kind of task where there's something interesting to do. There's something interesting at the end, and they're going to notice something, or, you know, be amazed, or, you know, maybe amazed. But that isn't kind of they will get some practice along the way,
Yeah.
but it is kind of the end result, or the main focus of the task. So yeah, I like tasks that do that.
I've written down something that I learned from Steve Lomax. The answer is only the beginning. And if you just present 10 questions, A, B, C, D, F, G, and so on and so forth, there's little incentive. And I know at the end of these interviews, I always do my no textbook required thing. It's because most textbooks, and some are trying to be different now, but are just a lot of questions. And there's just nothing links them. There's nothing that maybe inspires you. But for each of these, there's still 4 questions, if you like, or 4 things to deal with in each of the boxes. But because the question is worded differently, and just to make you think about each of them and deal with all 4 of them, as opposed to 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
That's how I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to.
Yeah, it does. I just think that when we look at questions, if we looked at a textbook, some textbooks, I'm not criticizing all textbooks, but if you opened one up and you looked, we use all the MEP books. Some of those questions are really good. I just want to answer them myself. Or I see something on Twitter that someone shares, I think, I want to have a go at that myself. And there are other questions I just think, oh, I'll just find the answers and just read them out. And I'm thinking, what must it be like for the student? You know, if we're looking at questions and we think, oh, I don't want to answer that. I mean, what incentive is there for them? And there's some questions that we can look at and we think, that looks quite inviting. I want to work that out. Is there a neat way of doing that? Is there a different way of doing that? So I think definitely the questions that interest us quite often will interest the students.
There's so many gems in this interview. I really enjoy it. If you see it and say, I want to do that, that's really good, because why the kids don't want to see 20 kids and questions in a row. But this, again, when you make it look as visibly attractive as it is as well, you want to do it. I've got another couple more that I took from your screen. We've looked at those 2. I had to bring this one up because you actually just mentioned him as well. And I think when you tweeted it, you mentioned this kind of Chris McGrain style task. It's also number 18, by the way, I must reiterate to people. I just really like this kind of task as well. And it's another example of how people are learning from each other on Twitter.
Yeah.
And stolen this idea. Nothing wrong with stealing ideas from people, by the way. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I think some people, when they start their career, feel that you shouldn't be doing that. But from what you've been talking about today, you've modelled something that's really important: the importance of discussion, the importance of reflection, the importance of actually just having a go at yourself and saying, well, what is the experience I'm going through? Is this interesting to me? Is it boring to me? But what you've shared today has been really interesting, Helen, because I think you've honestly modelled what I'd want maths teachers to be, and to be able to continue reflective after 15 years. I know before we started recording, I was talking about people I know who have been teaching the same for many, many years, and I think it's a real shame. and you'll continue looking for new things. And so, brilliant. Thank you so much. I want to take your suggestions for what I call the no textbook required section, but I want to make sure, is there anything else on the website we should have looked at that we haven't looked at?
No, I saw you had the triangular prism image up, but from there, yeah, that was a recent one. I haven't actually used this one yet. That's going to be after half term, the first lesson back. I got a bit ahead of myself. I was thinking about the 3D shapes we were looking at with my year 10s. And yeah, I do like shape as a unit. And we've just been looking at cuboids and looking at all the different questions there. I think in the past, I definitely used to rush. I would say try and get as many. I try and probably do volume of prisms, the whole lot, all in one lesson. And if I wanted to just spend the time just looking at cuboids, I would probably just make them harder by throwing in some X's or something like that. But yeah, we spent the whole lesson, and it highlighted to me a lot of the confusions they were having. And then I don't know, as I said, I haven't used this one yet, but I was hoping that we could think about the area of a triangle, and as a kind of a starting point. And this I wanted them to, as there is going to be a little bit where they're going to move on to looking at the scale factor of length, and then scale factor of area and scale factor of volume. So I thought this would be quite nice to have a look at what effects it has on the volume when you alter the lengths, and if you only change one length, 2 or 3. So that's what this task's about.
But again, what you've done is there are eight solids there to look at, and it's not A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Do this, do this, do this. They don't realize they're going to be doing 8 different questions because of the design of the question and the design of what you're hoping to look like in the classroom as well. The conversation, the what do you notice is on there. This is a really good example of clearly how you encourage mathematical thinking in your classroom. Another great one. So thank you. You kind of referred to the websites we're going to choose for this, and I ask all my guests now. It also indicates whether people have been watching other episodes. Do you know what 80s album I'm taking the mick out of here?
I heard someone mention it on one of the videos, and then I can't remember.
No, fine. It's lost. If it's my gag and it makes me laugh, that's fine. Phil Collins, no jacket required. But as you just said, some textbooks, fine. I think they're encouraging better problem solving now and better tasks that you want to do, like you just said. But there are so many good websites right now, and that's why I asked what your favorite online resources are and why. Now, you've mentioned a few of them as we've gone on, but let me find, screenshot sharing. That wasn't supposed to have happened. Let's go back because we discussed these before we start recording, and you've gone for 3. Number 1 you went for was MathBot.
Yes.
Tell us why.
It's the manipulatives that I love using on this site. I mean, he's a fantastic guy anyway. He's always in the lockdown social that Catherine Darwin does. And yeah, he'll listen to, what I like about this is he just listens to what people want. So he goes on Twitter and he sees things, and he's constantly amending and changing, adding things to his site that are useful for teachers. So there's so many useful things on here. I don't usually use some of the other sections like the do now and things like that. I don't really use those, but I use the manipulatives an awful lot, from using with my daughter, Key Stage 1, and using it with my classes, Key Stage 3 and 4. And he's got some useful add-ons like you've been able to use the maths in the chat in the meetings, remote teaching. He's got that added on there now, which is really useful.
That's right. The functions up here that I want to play more with as well. I interviewed him for one of the first of these series. I think it was number 3 or 4. And I said to him, I would love to do this again. And we realized within a month, he'd changed so much of the website. So I need to invite him on again because it's continually growing. And again, that's what I love about the maths profession, the maths teaching profession. People share so much. And people like him and Matt Woodfine, who's working on his website, they get feedback and continually improve it, which is awesome. It is clear that mathematical thinking is a big part of your pedagogy, and you chose Don Stewart, and I'm not surprised to hear that either.
Yeah, his site is fantastic. If you don't know it, you definitely need to spend some time on it. He did actually use one of my resources on his site. It's on percentages.
Oh wow!
And it was a couple of years ago. I can't remember the date, but if some scroll down, I'm not really quite sure where. And yeah, I found through Resourceaholic, when she shared it, that he'd obviously used it, and he'd mentioned obviously the link to the blog and everything, and it was one to do with if you've got a percentage of an amount, using it to find another percentage of amount rather than having the original amount. Okay. So I should have had it open so you could see.
No, what's nice, I mean, I did an episode on this with Joe Morgan as well, actually, and Graham from one of the local maths hubs. But even just playing each time you go, you then realize there's so much more, and just scrolling down. Is this it?
Yeah. So you just scroll up. There you go.
There's your name. This indeed. Try and get them to open. Practice makes perfect. My Zoom thing's in the way from one percentage to another. So this is the if I know, then I know. I assume there's some of the effect of some of these, as in making the connections. You've done one, so what can you tell from another one? In fact, all of them are. I think. Brilliant. And again, that's making connections in maths, which is again really clear with your pedagogy.
It was just, this topic was actually, when I made this, I just taught compound measures to my year 11 a few years ago. This was about 2017 this was. And we've just done that. And so we've used ratio tables. So we'd written things like 3 kilometers and then 1 hour. And then underneath we'd written, underneath the 1 hour, I'd written like 15 minutes. And we kind of worked it out using ratio tables. And then I presented a problem like this, but it was using exactly the same values from what I had used on a question on the speed, distance, time in the starting questions on that lesson, and they hadn't seen the connection. I hadn't realized that connection, and we discussed that. And then I went home and I made this, and so it connected to that.
And how nice, it's such a simple thing. And again, when I started teaching, I think I'd have had 10 questions all the same. Even just where you change where the question mark is a huge difference, whether it's the 50% is or question mark is the value. And it's just little things like that can actually really make you think sometimes for the kids. Well, otherwise fall into what you said at the start, that fluency, that it's not actual fluency, it's just practice, that's the same thing. They've not given any idea for conceptual understanding of it. You have your third choice of website hasn't been chosen before, yet it's how I know you. It's how I've known virtually all the people I've interviewed, and it's changed my practice entirely. I remember Isabella Wallace, when I decided I was more interested in pedagogy, she said to me, I said, what's the biggest piece of advice you got? She said, join Twitter. And it sounds like you're of the same opinion, if you like.
Yeah, the Twitter maths community is fantastic. I mean, since joining, I have made links with people from the EYFS, Key Stage 1 and 2, and that has really helped my teaching. Getting to see via Twitter what people are doing. I mean, there's some fantastic people in the EYFS, particularly because my daughter was that age kind of thing. So that was interesting for me. Right. But some of the blogs they're sharing, I love reading, Dr. Helen Williams and Simon Gregg. And then you've got also Professor Smudge. If you're not following him, he has been one of the biggest influence, I think, in my career. Definitely. He's fantastic. His ideas, he trumps me, definitely. His way of thinking, and how when he presents questions, I just go away and I want to solve everything that he puts out there. I mean, he has got a site, it's quite sparse. I do have those math medicine books, they're great.
Brilliant.
So there's just loads of people on Twitter. You just need to, if you're not on Twitter, you just need to join, pick someone like Joe Morgan or Craig Barton or someone, look through their list of who they're following and just click, and you won't be disappointed. It will definitely change. Well, it'll have a big impact on your teaching, I think.
Helen, I've really, really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed it, because I think your journey shares a lot of what we should all be doing as a profession, not only on a personal level, but also with department ideas and staff ideas. And I can tell you from one of my jobs as a PGCE tutor, during this, I've written down so many little sentences. I was thinking, I am going to make my trainees watch this interview, because the way you talk about how you've changed during your journey and how you've been influenced and always been willing to continue to be influenced, and your ideas for task design to ensure that the answer is not the beginning. I thoroughly enjoyed that. So on behalf of everybody who's watching or who's ever used your website, Thank you so much for sharing what you do, and it was inspirational. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Thank you.